Morning. I know we're just starting to see the crowd in, but I think it's time. It's good for us to start. I have to read this because this name is quite interesting. I've struggled to memorize. Welcome to navigating AI-driven job displacement, designing a universal transition framework, which is a fancy way of saying that how can we get better jobs or not get impacted by jobs. So that's what it is. But I think it is a much more relevant topic because nobody is talking about this much, right? I think it's very interesting. Even before I come in, I know people are coming in, but I would like to get a quick pulse so that can set the stage for it, right? How many of you here thinks that AI is going to create more jobs than the number of jobs it will kill? Just a quick one. I like the optimism. Others means no. Okay, good. It's equally done. Let me ask this, right? How many of you think that your jobs will be positively impacted by AI? It's a better one, okay? How many of you think it will be negatively impacted by AI? Okay, a small one. So I think it's good. I like it because it's most of us, it's an optimistic. I think that's the way it should be. So we are all talking about job killings now. So roughly we are losing like anywhere like 500 jobs per day just in tech jobs alone globally because of AI. I think it's a matter of time before we start seeing job creations. So we have a wonderful panel to listen from today, and I will just give a very, very quick intro about them, and I will allow them to introduce themselves. We have Alex Swartsel. I think even I'm here to learn a lot because you sit literally in the intersection of policy, education, and how that can be applied in enterprises. So I would love to see that. Hardi, obviously each one is going to introduce, but I think very curious to know is Hardi is not just creating very expensive PowerPoints in AI, she's actually implementing it. So I like to see that. And Kedar, I think his background is very fascinating. I'm going to allow him to introduce on that. Have been on the hot seat of massive companies, billion-dollar revenue companies or plus. So I'm very keen to see that. And finally, Preetha. Preetha's addition is going to be very valuable because some of the areas her firm manages, like claims processing, underwriting, some say that it's going to be completely taken over by AI. Some say that it's going to be extremely enhanced. So I also would like to get Preetha's view. With that, let's just get your introduction. We'll start from Kedar.
Hi, I'm Kedar Deshpande. I was former CEO of Zappos and Groupon. And I get to work with AI almost every day because these days I'm helping a lot of startups. And so the pace of innovation is just incredible and great to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Swartsel. I'm an Associate Vice President at Jobs for the Future. JFF is a national nonprofit that focuses on working with education and workforce systems all around the country to help make it easier for people to get access to really high quality education and training and ultimately a better and economically mobile job.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hardi Gokani. I'm a Director of Product Management at Granger. I lead product strategy and vision, specifically for AI/ML-powered products. And along with that, I've also led enterprise-wide AI adoption initiatives with a focus on measurable outcomes.
Hello, everyone. Preetha Sekharan. I lead the digital innovation and applied AI team at Unum. Unum is a life and disability insurance provider, and me and my team drive building, scaling, deploying AI initiatives across the organization.
And audience, if you have a questions, you can raise your hands. We have probably a small section by the end. If you have in between, do this. So Jeffrey Hinton promised he will take selfie with the first 3 questions. So just joking, because people turn their heads. So either way, first let's start with, see, we all know that AI can be pro-capitalism. That's why billions and billions of dollars are getting in. We also know that it could be pro-mankind with all the new discoveries, especially in the healthcare side. But the question is, can it be pro-workers, right? I think that's the big debate that we are having, right? So Alex, I will start with you. JFF, I think your study and research is saying this displacement caused by AI is going to be completely different than the past one. Like to hear more about that.
Sure. I mean, I think the short answer to that question, can AI be pro-worker, is that of course it can, but we have to design it that way. Jeffrey Hinton this morning talked about the idea of maternal AI, which is a construct I hadn't heard before. And I think we like to think of it as, how can AI make us all better off? What do we need to do, and how we're designing jobs and people's pathways to livelihoods, how we're designing learning and training opportunities, the technology itself, and the education and workforce systems that we all move through, including our employers, so that we can ensure that AI contributes to economic mobility and better jobs rather than the other way around. And I do think we're in a very different moment than we've seen in the past for a whole variety of reasons. The speed of adoption of AI, its rapid diffusion in both a B2B and a B2C context, the fact that it is addressing so-called higher skilled or white collar jobs in ways that past waves of automation haven't. And with all of this, this forces are colliding with systems that aren't built for that level of agility and resilience. And that's a massive challenge for all of us, but particularly for people all over this country who have traditionally experienced barriers to economic advancement, whether those are people without a four-year college degree, people with criminal records, often people of color, often women in many occupations. And so we have to design our systems and the technology itself to make sure that opportunity is available for everybody, that everybody has the skills that they need, the jobs are designed in such a way that center uniquely human capabilities and that do so while generating business value, which is a huge challenge, but I think we can do it.
Let me ask this. So who should design that system? Is it like institutions like JFF or enterprises, government? Who should design that? Because it cannot be all three. It has to be somebody taking the lead.
I mean, I think that's the exact challenge, right? Because systems are systems for a reason. They are designed by all of us. And it can, I think, be very easy to look only to public policy as the ultimate solve of all of these things. Well, if we only had a law, then we could fix it. And while on some hands that can be true, on the other hand, policy can often be a lagging indicator, as we're seeing in America very, very much today. And so the more that institutions that have big levers that they can pull, whether they are major employers, whether they are major college or workforce systems, community-led economic development organizations that can work even in a microcosm to design new pathways in a place-based way to experiment with something. I mean, it's so tempting to look for the silver bullet, and I don't think there is one, especially at this moment when things are changing so fast that we don't have good data yet. So if the one system architect is waiting for the one magisterial set of data, we're going to be waiting forever and the world will pass us by. So I think we have to think differently about how we test and experiment and inculcate innovative approaches within all of these systems where that can be a huge challenge. What's that going to take? And then over time, hopefully pretty quickly, that can start to ladder up to bigger changes that we can enact through policy or that can be more widespread.
Thank you, Alex. And Hardi, I will ask this to you, the next question. Especially with Granger, are you seeing practically jobs getting created, disappearing, or transforming? I would like to know more on the transforming piece. Because Revature, the company I founded, we are the largest tech training company, primarily helping to address skill gap. Sadly, even though we make good money, we haven't solved that. Skill gap solving itself is a major problem. I would like to hear on ground, are you seeing transformation happening?
That's a question I reflect upon a lot. The reality, as I see it on the ground, is that jobs are transforming. I'll give an example of the work we've done at Granger. Granger operates in a very complex industrial environment. We rely a lot on our field team members to understand our customers' maintenance, repair, and operations needs. What that is safety equipments, plumbing supplies, everything that keeps a machine up and running. And so our strategy for implementing AI at Granger is AI augmentation. We work very closely with our team members and try to identify opportunities where AI can elevate what they do. So for example, when we acquire new customers, we require our sales team members to go on field and actually understand what our customers are using today. The pre-AI era, the way they used to do this is they would go manually, collect information in an Excel document, spending hours crunching data, because the way the products are set up are in a very complex warehouse setting. So it's not straightforward that you just go and grab a list. What we did is we implemented an AI-powered mobile application that specifically uses computer vision that assists and augments the work our team members do on field for collecting that customer inventory information. This, of course, the data collection that used to take hours now takes only minutes. So yes, it was a productivity boost for us. However, what is the interesting part to note is it was a shift in the way they did their jobs. So now when they're on field, they're not just spending time staring at Excel documents, they're actually doing work that matters, connecting and listening to our customers and solving their problems. However, a conversation about AI and job displacement would be incomplete if we don't address the elephant in the room, the recent wave of layoffs that we've seen in the tech environment. Let's take Microsoft, for example. Microsoft has been in the news since 2023 for going through multiple rounds of restructuring and layoffs so that they can pump more investment into AI infrastructure. However, the interesting part to note here is that if you compare their workforce from 2023 to 2025, there's actually a 3% increment in their workforce. What this tells me is that, yes, jobs are getting reshaped and reskilled, but there are more jobs overall in the market versus what you are used to seeing maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. So ultimately, it's about figuring out how AI and humans can work together to drive higher and more efficient outcomes.
We help small and medium-sized businesses to make a customized platform with augmented AI, which means that we designed AI to help, to work with the humans. And our goal is, helping them throughout the restructuring to kind of like not sending people home as much as we can. But few questions that we have came across, and I'll ask just two of them that I've been, looking for the answer and I couldn't find it anymore, in the past year. So my first question goes to Alex. Schools are behind everyone, and you're working with the educators. I personally, as a person who has an interdisciplinary skills, has been looking for opportunity to, teach his students about, how you can integrate AI into a business. I'm not a tech person, but I have interdisciplinary skills. But everyone is like, we don't know what it is yet. We just know this storm is coming to grab us. So I'm wondering if behind the scene, or if you're informed about any plan or anything coming up to the school. And all of these curriculum to me is outdated. They have to change it. They need to train people in a different way. They need to learn how to, work with the AI. The knowledge that we have is already outdated. That's my first question. Second question, I don't know who can answer that, is any policy going on? Who is going to protect the rights of employees? Large organization like Google or Microsoft, they work with the McKinsey, and McKinsey always is pretty harsh to send people home. Small and medium-sized businesses are really at risk. So we at least try to help them. But the governmental sources are very short on that. You need, the resources. And also, that's the question for everyone. There's no policy out there. All we know that the states cannot, come up with their own legislations. But so who is going to protect, and what would be the rights of employee? Because everyone advised that, go with a good hygiene of, laws and regulation until, people put out the layout, how does it look like? But I'm wondering if anyone knows anything about
So, Alex, you can take the first one quickly. The second one, I think we will be covering that as part of our subsequent questions. So, Alex, you want to take
Sure. I think AI literacy, there's a lot of progress. So, for example, the administration's AI action plan, which came out a couple of weeks ago, and as well as the previous executive order, included a huge push that's focused on K-12 education. The American Federation of Teachers has a major partnership with Microsoft, for example, that's around upskilling teachers. There are a lot of great organizations like the AI Education Project, AI EDU, AI for Education, others that are really working hard to try to get AI literacy into the K-12 setting. So we're nowhere near where we need to be, but there's a lot of good progress underway. That's both what the curriculum should be, what AI literacy looks like at that stage, how do we do that in a way that's safe and thoughtful. progress, not enough, but progress. The thing that I'm curious about is something else that's embedded in what you said, which is what about all of the other skills? So how are we trained, just as Hardi was talking about, workers are going to need to communicate in completely different ways, need to empathize and understand interpersonal skills in very, very different ways, because it is about communicating with humans, but also about how we communicate with machines. Education has not figured that out yet. That I think we need to really focus on, and that's going to take the collective effort of systems to help us figure out what that looks like.
Thank you for that, Alex. And so this is, Kedar, for you. I'm very much interested in this question as well. So both the companies that you ran, Zappos and Groupon, are huge innovative models as a result of digital transformation. And you extremely succeeded in that. How is AI different from digital transformation?
Digital transformation was more about customers and customer front. And so I will just answer the specific part of it rather than taking anything else into consideration. So digital transformation, you're buying something into a store, you're doing something inside your systems and whatnot. AI, on the other hand, is transformation across the board, in my opinion. And so when we say across the board, what does that mean? That means any repetitive part of your job, first and foremost, can go away, because you don't have to do that again and again. So this example she was talking about, where you have to take the inventory down and manually collect all that information, doesn't need to be there. But this is not applicable to one set of people. It's applicable to accountants. It's applicable to customer service. So broad spectrum, that's how it is different, in my opinion. Now, the second question is adoption speed. And I think that's where the whole discussion is about. And what I feel like is that the displacement on these particular fronts, where digital adoption didn't, it created new jobs, it took away some of the old processes and some specific parts of it. Here, if your value as an employee is repetitive process, then there is a real good chance that you are doing the same thing over and over. You come in every day, you look at that, and previously no algorithm could do it because it was only A happens, do B, or some sort of way, then you would not be displaced. But now it is intellectual layer. So your value add as an employee, as an organization, needs to be very clear. And that's what is going to drive much more, again, digital transformation versus AI transformation. AI transformation will be much more invasive in that particular sense.
Thank you, Kedar. And so I have an interesting question. I will just wait for this next section for you. So Preetha, let me ask this, right? So a lot of people are confused between automation and agents, right? So the way I see is automation, it's context aware, not automation. Agents are context aware, automation need not be. Especially the field you're in at Unum, a lot of these things are repeated process. Do you think your AI implementation are just automation plus, or are you genuinely seeing a way for agents to play a role there?
I think for us, like where we are at the moment, I do not believe the agentic technology and everything is at a level where you can deploy more generalized agents. So where we are looking at different parts of our value chain, looking at what are the jobs that people perform, what are the tasks. There are some tasks that are a lot more conducive for having an AI agent. Tasks that are repetitive, I think Kedar mentioned that. Tasks that are more routine, much simpler. And those are definitely things that we will be deploying AI agents for. But then there are, if you think about the business that we are in, people come to us at the time of need. They are going through a personal pain. And what you need on the other side of that phone call is someone who is more empathetic, who is able to connect with that individual at an individual level, right? And that is not something we can use agents for. So there is definitely a lot of power. Insurance is data rich. Insurance is definitely a space where we do believe that AI will play a very big role. But it is going to be human-machine collaboration. the roles and the tasks that people perform will change, and I agree with you that those many roles will get transformed as part of this, but it is not going to be automation taking over the world, is what we think.
Absolutely. I also believe, Preetha, what you're telling is how the whole industry is facing. At the same time, I think change is going to come fast. Yesterday, I saw this company. It's built by a Harvard professor. So their software is installed in everybody's machine, every employee's machine. Every keystroke is monitored, everything. Using that, because their well is understanding the process of how human beings, your workforce interacts with the digital world is key. The best way to track it is keyboards and how we use the mouse and your touch screen. And with that, they are creating process context like nothing. I was really stunned to see how accurate they are. And with that context, they're telling these should be automated, this should be eliminated, it's wasting your time, and this should be augmented by agents. Simple. And I was shocked to see the results. So when I saw that, I was genuinely happy that I am approaching my 50, so I'm not like at the peak of my career. But it's a little scary to do that. And now let's get into the solution part, right? And Alex, I will just start with you. It's easier said than done, especially relying on government. We talked about governance and everything. I genuinely believe there has to be a proper governance, but we did not even get the social media governance right, let alone AI. And especially when we are having a government saying there cannot be any governance now, right? Can vehicles like WIOA, which is Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, I think I'm getting the name right. It's run by Department of Labor Division. Can those initiatives be upgraded for these solutions, especially for upskilling? Because that's designed primarily for this. Do you think we should look into such vehicles, or we should look for something else?
I mean, of course we should, right? WIOA which is the law that you referred to, hasn't been reauthorized since 2014. One or two things have happened since then. And there's great legislation, this one I had to write down, the Stronger Workforce for America Act, which was passed at the end of last year, hasn't been enacted yet. That has a lot of really great changes to WIOA, making the training that it supports more focused on skill development, encouraging employer engagement. A lot of really, really good changes. It needs to actually become law, and that's one piece of the puzzle. There are some other great proposals in the administration's action plan, for example, like the creation of a research hub. Taylor Stockton from the Department of Labor mentioned this earlier today, that would essentially use public structures to create public goods that would be much too costly or inefficient for any constellation of private actors to do on their own. So the collection and maintenance and curation of much, much better real-time labor market data, for example, which is just a really profound need right now. And, there is still more that we can do that also is about how we use the levers of policy to invest in workers directly or to encourage or incentivize behavior. For example, what would it look like to expand tax credits for employers to offer reskilling training, whether that's to incumbent workers or to other workers that are in their orbit? So there is a lot that we can do on a policy level. And I think we've been talking about this a bit. How then do we prepare our broader systems and prepare workers and learners themselves to be able to step into those opportunities? So there is a lot that policymakers and governments can do at both the federal and state level. But there is also a lot, and we've heard about it from Hardi and Preetha, that employers can do, whether that is taking a really hard look at the jobs that they're creating to say, are these quality jobs? Do they pay people well? Do they offer benefits? Do they offer flexibility and opportunities for advancement, for example? And how, if they don't, how can we use AI integration to make them quality jobs, for example? How can we, if we're a training provider or a workforce organization, how do we meet people where they are, for example, to provide training at off hours so that somebody can work and then still go to school and be upskilled in some ways, or provide things like childcare, provide laptops for people that don't have them. There is a lot about how do we meet people where they are and understand what are the real barriers that often exist to people being able to develop their skills and access opportunities. Those barriers often are things that you don't necessarily expect, but they are very, very real. Because if, a single mom has to work to support her family and can't take time away to go to a short-term boot camp, much less get a 4-year college degree, then that's a huge barrier for her in seeking opportunity. And we have a constellation of actors. Sure, their policy can help, but her future employer can help. Training systems can help create a pathway for her that allows her to live into her potential and to build a career that allows her to support herself and her family.
Thank you, Alex. And you're right. And one more thing which I'm seeing pockets of success is forming like learning group or study group among people, because the biggest challenge workers are facing is the unknown is unknown. So collective knowledge is helpful. And Kedar, let me ask this question to you. With your background, I assume you're a free market capitalist. I am one. And again, let's be honest. We don't do anything unless there's a benefit, especially the capitalism, right? That's the way it works. What will motivate you? Let's say that you are sitting in an organization, running the company with a lot of workforce. You know the transition is imminent. What will motivate you to invest money to make the transition to AI? Because ultimately, without money, nothing is possible. And getting government money is not easy either. So what will motivate you actually?
Yeah, so just give you an anecdote. I was talking to one of my other former CEO colleague, and he was telling me they run also very big conferences between CEOs. And one of the things they asked in that particular conference, like at least 100 attendees, is that how many of you are using AI within your organization? And almost 99 people raised their hand except one. And then the next question he asked is how many of you actually increase your EBITDA or margins or total profit pool using AI? And probably 2 went up. And so that's the challenge we have as overall ecosystem. And so I think that direct visibility is not there. And there are a lot of organizations which are struggling with this particular thing, which say, I can eliminate, but I can add their AI and I can help employees, I can increase the efficiency. But there is not direct correlation in terms of my profit pool increasing. And I think there are two different, so if you step back, there are two different challenges organizations haven't solved. So AI is just like any other wave, in my opinion, because waves transform the organization, but they also expose the deficiencies inside the organization. And so if your core is not solid, then it's time to reflect on that core. So when I say that, for example, if your organization culture is not about transformation, it's not about customer first, it's all about making the tactical decisions for that specific quarter. And that's what you have been showing with your acts, not preaching, but showing with your acts, then it's very difficult. But if your organization is all about, hey, we are customer first and whatever we are going to do, AI actually empowers. And this is the example I'm going to get into is where at Zappos, we always cared about culture with the customer and employee happiness first, empowerment first. And so I had an employee, and this was 5 years back, she was looking at customer service calls and taking the repetitive customer calls. And she was like, I'm very sick of it to tell the same problem over and over. So she didn't just escalate it. She actually put the spreadsheet, learn Excel macros, and then present it to the all other groups to say, look, this is what we can say for you as well as for us. Just initiative driven. And so my point here is that now somebody, it might have took her 1 month to learn that particular skill. Now with AI, she can do that probably in a day if you ask it. So this is the kind of thing which is, if your organization is clear about its culture, it's about what the priorities are, then you can see the ROI really fast. And that's what is the core to your organization. So yes, there is a lot more ROI that you can see through, but as long as you understand your core.
That's very good. See, what you're saying quite recently, say a few weeks ago, the CEO of a large company said the same thing. The best way to get the transition is empowering your employees that they are in charge of this transition, and also taking a change management approach rather than telling that, oh, by turn of a switch, you have to be an AI. No, just give them a structured path for a change management approach. So, which is very valid. And Preetha, this question is for you, right? So from Revature, when we go to firms asking for, hey, train my people in AI, the initial conversation is like rah, right? Like, oh, it's a CEO, direct you, whatever it takes, 6 months training, whatever it is, great. We give them a 10 weeks curriculum, come back, can you make it to 6 weeks? Then we say yes. Then comes back, oh, the project manager said they're busy with their work. It cannot be done. It has to be like 3 weeks. In reality, ultimately, if I get 2 hours per day, that's a challenge. And then they say, can the workers ask within their non-paid hours? Then the HR comes and says that, oh, we won't be obligated to pay. Too many confusions, right? So how are you allocating your employees training? Because everybody has to make a living. How are we allocating that? Is it within the company's paid hours, like partial, part-time? What's your approach on it?
So I personally believe change is all good when it is happening to somebody else. And so it pretty much starts with how do you be more inclusive in having them shape what is actually going to happen to the rest of their organization. So including them in shaping these AI products, I think that's a very, very critical first step. As we deploy this, taking it through phases. So we are very structured about having a model office where you actually test it out with few people, see what needs to change within that select group of individuals before you roll that out. So change management in most of the initiatives that we have been deploying in our organization, we think of change management right from the beginning. It is pretty much built as part of the initiative through the various stages. And then on the backside, right? So once the initiative is completed, the value realization as well, right? So we're intentional about, if you realize $10 million of OpEx savings, not all of that goes to the bottom line. There is some that is flowed back into reskilling individuals and upskilling them. So that's kind of, I think, Alex, you mentioned, you have to be intentional about these things. They just don't happen.
Thank you, Preetha. And Hardi, I have this question for you because this is based on what you said before, which is you are taking an augmentation approach. To me, it's the right approach because that's going to be a massive value, especially in your ability to transition. The problem at least I can foresee that, I hope I'm wrong, is the younger kids. I have 2 boys, 17 and 13. My elder one, 17, like so much into AI. I don't think so he will see the human elements of job killing and everything. He's always talking about how futuristic it is. And whether we want it or not, they're the one going to set the narration of AI in the future. I just read the news in CNBC that Perplexity, which is valued at 18 billion, has offered to take over Google Chrome for 35 billion. Right? So I thought it will be the other way around, right? That's what these young kids do, and they are going to rule it. How do you make sure that from our generation to the next generation, the human in the loop, that augmentation mode can be transitioned?
For me, that principle is very simple. Your users and your employees cannot be an afterthought when you're designing a product. They have to be at the forefront of anything that you're designing. So there's a 3-phased loop approach that I like to use quite a bit, where phase 1 is code design. You invite your users of whatever you're building into the design phase, embed them, not just for feedback, but for decision making. For example, at one of our product portfolios, what we did was we invited our users and put them into our code design group where they were making decisions on how they would interact and review AI-generated outputs. Then we go to phase 2. Phase 2 is progressive automation. What that means is we don't turn a switch on and off from human to AI. Initial phases of deployment would look like where our team members are spending time reviewing AI outputs, so they always have the liberty to override a decision that AI made. However, as the AI model gets more and more data, it's going to get more accurate. So what will happen is our team members will do less and less of those repetitive tasks and would be spending more time on high-value initiatives that matter to the company top-line metrics. And then phase 3 is skill uplifting. Skill uplifting, as Alex mentioned, cannot be an afterthought. Companies and employees should start thinking about it when you're building a transition. And so what we do is we educate our team members and users on how to interact with AI, how to supervise AI, and always have an escalation path back to the human to make a decision on using their judgment and critical thinking. So all this to say that do not build your AI products around the people and not the other way around.
So if I have to summarize, you're saying it is augmented workforce with the capability of augmented decision making, right? I think that's what it is. Good, very good. So now just let's get into the economics of it, right? And ultimately, we need to make sure that money matters. So Preetha, I'll start with you. So firms like ours, tech services, we go to your CEOs and say that, hey, by AI, we can save you so-and-so things, so-and-so time. All those things we do it. And sadly, we can be convincing, right? So how, if your CEO, let's say a kind-hearted person comes to you and asks, hey, what will I tell the board that I don't need to use AI for saving cost or job killing, but rather this is what, if I do a proper transition from the current way of working to AI way of working, this is how you would benefit. What advice would you give your CEO?
I think looking at any AI initiative and saying, I mean, it's just driving efficiency, you're probably being short-sighted. What we have found is, like, invariably, most AI initiatives would kind of not just improve like efficiency, it will improve effectiveness, the quality of your work, the turnaround times for that particular transaction. So it is pretty much, it's a trifecta of a lot of other value drivers other than efficiency. I would also say that, like, in organizations like ours, there's a lot of institutional knowledge, right? So bringing in, like, if you find that the skills are not appropriate, you're probably better off upskilling or cross-skilling, the individuals that you already have, because the ramp to proficiency is very long. It takes a long time for people to kind of bring in new people and train them on things that they should know about the organization, because there is a lot of institutional knowledge that comes with it.
I like that. Institutional knowledge should be key. Kedar, let me ask this question. So the last 10 years, my life has been like managing companies for 2 private equities. So they literally make all of us sign. Our number one fiduciary duty as a CEO is to give shareholders returns. Simple, right? And they keep reminding us every month, every quarter, right? How do you balance between AI transition, workforce transition, return? Yes, AI transition can give you returns, but how can you balance between AI workforce transition along with shareholder return, actually?
Yeah, so I think AI can be actually multiplying force, and that's why I was saying that there is has to be correlation between not just, hey, there is some savings here and there, like this. It reminds me of one of those particular things where, like, back in the days when the digital transformation happened, like a lot of websites, they used to come back and say, I did this particular experiment and my conversion went up by 10 basis points. And then you look at the sales and sales are same. So your value is like, oh, I did something. It was great. Everybody said right. But then it didn't matter to shareholders in general. And so this has to be show moment, and AI has the capability to show that directly attribution. And so if it is all about savings or it is all about customer happiness, that can transform into direct revenue or profit pool. And I think that has to be there. And so it needs to come with a pragmatic lens. And so as other participants are saying, mostly if it is just like, hey, trust me, this will happen, that's not going to happen. You have to have the direct visibility into that from a shareholder perspective. And I think AI makes it much more easier to get that there. And it's faster as well. So for example, if you did whatever I was talking about, website redesign and whatnot, it will take months and months and months, and then you are looking at that. AI, you can do that within days, and you can see that sort of transformation. So both acceleration as well as adoption is important. But again, I will be the broken tune in there, is like, if your cores are not clear, how do you make more money? How do you generate more revenue? If that is not clear to your organization, then AI is not going to help you there.
So we just have 3 minutes left. So I'm just going to ask last question. Please respond. Each one of them give a quick response, and we'll try to use that 3 minutes. The question is, let's say that 3 years, 5 years down the line, we are having the same panel, same team. Will AI create prosperity for all or prosperity for few? And let's be honest for it. I will give my take too. Let's just.
I think AI will create prosperity for all and not for few. overall, but I think it will create gaps for somebody who is not ready to change or is not clear about how they add the value.
I think all, but there's a lot that we have to do to get there that ladder into the skill development that we've been talking about. I think if we proceed on the current course where we're not investing enough yet in education, we're not asking questions about how AI is making jobs better, we're not helping people become entrepreneurs where they have the capability to do that, and we're seeing early interest, then I think it goes the other way.
I've been a consultant, so I'll say it depends. It depends because it depends on your mindset, how optimistic and curious you are to learn about how AI can make your life easy in the job that you do. So it depends on how you as an employee are going to approach it.
I think it'll be painful in the short term. There will be prosperity, but that's probably a much longer term.
Got it. I'm same belief, but with one caveat. I think let's call it as like to be white collar jobs, people who are elevating themselves from blue collar, they will benefit the most. But I believe the current high paid white collar job, they will get negatively impacted the most. So that's my take. But in net, the number of people who will benefit in AI will be good. With that, I really want to thank you, all of you, for this.